the roll call at this point.
Okay. Candace Julian is excused. David Alexander. Louise Emmanuel. Brian Lafferty. Jessica Mays. Victoria Camarada Curto. Yes. Yesenia Cardona. Here. Claudia Kajer. Cynthia Cox. Cynthia Cox. Harold Miller. Monica Major, Angel Gowan. Eugene's office. Francisco Feliz. Helen Foreman Hines is excused. Isaac Heschel.
Here.
Hi. Barbara Sherman for Letitia James is excused. Rita Jones is excused. Rhonda Joseph. Susie Tannenbaum. Britannia Burchell. Wayne King.
Present.
Gregory Hamburg.
Here.
Is excused. Joseph Pierre.
I am present.
Good. Lachey Young. Here. Taj Berry. Claudia Perez. Victor Reyes.
Here.
Tamika Robinson. Present. Christian Rodriguez. Present. Asama Elamarisi. Nina Saxton. Robert Oliva. Derek Tate.
Here.
Ariel Sabransky. Gregory Brender. Excused. Janet DeLugo. Present. And Linda Walters is excused. Cynthia Cox. Oh, there she is. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the meeting. We don't have a quorum, but we are going to start the meeting and move with the agenda. And as last time, as members come and become accounted for, hopefully we can vote on it. We can vote on the necessary items on the agenda. Happy holidays to everyone. It's good to see you. Thank you for being flexible to the change in the meeting. The idea to cancel the last meeting was thrown around, but I thank the Deputy Commissioner for making the final call, because as we know, that day was a horrible day for all of us. I think the average time for people to get home was like 6-7 hours or more. So we did not want to inconvenience anyone and wanted everyone to get home safe. So thank the DYCD for making that call for the meeting and pushing for this alternate date so we can do what is necessary. Again, I'm going to go through the agenda, and if we do get a quorum, I will circle back so that we can vote on the necessary items. Again, as stated, we have the stenographer here and video. If you make a comment or a response, please just state your name for the record so that we have it as part of the minutes. You have the minutes from the previous meeting. I'm not going to ask for a vote on the minutes now. I'm just going to ask if anyone has any questions regarding the minutes from our September 6th meeting. if you had an opportunity to review the minutes. Okay, there's no questions. In the way of board correspondence, I want to recognize Ms. Asama. I'm sorry, Asama, where are you? I just want to pronounce your last name correctly.
My first and last name is Esma.
Esma?
Yep,
Elarusi.
Elarusi.
Esma Elarusi. Got it. Thank you for the clarification. So I'm going to read the letter from the office of Debbie Rose, dated December 6th. It reads, Dear Sir, Madam, as you know, I have appointed Rena Francis Martin, Esquire, as my representative at DYCD's Community Advisory Board. When Ms. Martin is unable to attend a full board meeting of the CAB, I designate Ms. Esma Alabrusi to attend as my representative in her place. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding the above. Sincerely, Council Member Debbie Rose, New York City, 49th District. So she's present here. Welcome. Thank you for being a part of the meeting. We look forward to it. Is there anything you'd like to say to address the board while you're here?
Well, I would just like to thank Councilwoman.
She's actually going to give me a mic. Hold on one second.
I would just like to thank Councilwoman Debbie Rose and Winnie Martin for nominating me to serve as the alternate representative, and also for CAB to include me into their meeting today and to vote on my representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. We appreciate it. Should you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask any of the members or to myself.
Claudia, Karen is here.
Yes. Again, we're not going to vote on the acceptance, but we want to acknowledge the new members as they're here, and we may need to vote at a later time. Next is the recognition of Ms. Claudia Perez, NAB Manhattan 11. Ms. Claudia Perez is here. I'm sorry. Hi, how are you? Thank you for coming to the meeting. We welcome you. Is there anything you'd like to say to address the board?
I would just like to say I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. Welcome.
So, is Rhonda Joseph here? Not yet.
Okay, she's not here. All right. Let's give a hand for the new members that are present here at the meeting today. Thank you for your service. Next up, we're going to circle some Get Well cards for you to sign. Some of you may know, or some of you may not know, Rita Jones, who you know is serves as a secretary as part of the executive committee. Has gone through some serious eye surgery. She's been having some trouble seeing, and she's had some health issues. She still has difficulty seeing at this point, which is preventing her from being a part of the meeting. But members of DYCD and myself have been in touch with her, and she's recovering, but we'd like to circle this Get Well card from the members just to let her know we're thinking of her, especially during this holiday season, and hoping to wish her well. Also, there's another Get Well card that's being circulated for Dr. Patel, and for all of you that have been on this board for some time know Dr. Patel and his wife, Mrs. Patel, has been serving on the board. He suffered a stroke recently, but I spoke to Mrs. Patel, and he is recovering and doing well. And you know how valuable he was to the board, and how much his service means to this body of work. So again, that Get Well card for him is going to be circulating. I encourage you to sign it just to let him know we're thinking of him and wishing him well, especially during this holiday season. Next up, I'm going to ask artists to come up and give us our financial quarterly report.
Hi, good evening, and happy holidays.
Thank you.
My name is Artist Sam Logan. I'm the Senior Budget Director and oversees the CSBG
portfolio. I'm going to do a brief report on the financial statement of CSBG for city fiscal year 19. As you are all familiar by now, sorry. In city fiscal year 19, we have $34.2 million that we're spending on CSBG activities, and of that, $27 million is allocated to program contracts. I want to talk a little bit about program contracts. Quite a few of these categories had their contract period ended at the end of city fiscal year 18, and for city fiscal year 19, we did a renewal, a 2-year renewal for some of these areas. For example, the neighborhood development group has been renewed for city fiscal year 19 and 20. Naikali and adolescent literacy has been renewed for city fiscal year 19 and 20. As you know, fatherhood and immigration services, the RFP or the contract period started in city fiscal year 18, so this is the second year of that contract period. The rest of the $34 million is spent on other contractual services, and we'll go into some of that later on. And the balance of it is spent on personal services with DYCD. Because of renewal of these contract periods, there's still some contracts that are in the registration process, meaning it hasn't been fully registered at this point. Providers are still providing services, but once that happens, we'll see more activity on the finances. But year to date, we have spending of $6.5 million, and that represents 24% of the budget. We have paid out $9.3 million, and that represents 35%. And as a reminder, we give our providers an advance at the start of the year so they can have startup money to begin the program. So that's why our payment at this time of the year is greater than our expenditures. Just if we look at a few of these, for example, I want to highlight the SYP program. We had a budget of $4.6 million for SYP in city fiscal year 19, and you'll notice that that spending is way higher than all of the others, at 75%. And as you may be aware, the bulk of this program happens in July and September of the city fiscal year, so most of the activity happens at that time. That's why the spending at this point is much higher than the rest. Whereas the other programs are over the entire 12 months, so the spending represents that monthly submission of expenses to us. On the other contractual services, the biggest area there are our technical assistance contracts. We have a budget of about $1.9 million, and spending there, as you see, is lower than expected, but right now our technical assistance contracts are running programs, and invoices usually happen much later on in the city fiscal year. So DYCD isn't worried this low spending rate will impact, it will be any different from previous years, which is close to 98 to 100% spending. There's a few areas here where we have spending as well. We have spending in fiscal agent services, marketing, public awareness, and outreach, travel, board development, and stipend. The spending for this category, other contractual services, represents 6% of the budget. The last category is personal services, and that spending at this point represents 26%. If we do a comparison to the last CAB meeting we had, which was on the 9th of September, at that point for program contracts, we had spending of $3.4 million. And if you compare that to the 6.5 we have today, that represents about an 88% increase from the last meeting. Other contractual services, that speaks for itself. We had $800, and we're now $161,000. And for personal services, because we claim our personal services on a quarterly basis, at that point in time, we did not have a claim, so we now we went from 0 to 1.6%. On the payment side, the last meeting we had about $5.1 million, and compared that to $9.3 million, that's about an 85% increase. That's the report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Artis. Does anyone have any questions regarding the financial report?
Victoria Camerata Curda, look at me. Reaching 14, because I keep looking at the numbers. Like you said, we had an increase of the total spending, or an increase of more money coming in from the federal job. I didn't understand the last part you said. Can you repeat that?
Are you talking about the auto contractual services bit, or the?
No, the very bottom.
The personal services.
Yeah, you said something about an increase, and I just didn't get the last part.
Okay, what I was comparing spending at the meeting from September to the spending as of today.
Okay.
So, exactly. So it's not an increase in the budget, we've increased spending because.
Of course.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Simple. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? And as a reminder, especially for the new members, this is sent out as part of the packet early so you can kind of review it. It's a lot of information. Sometimes you can't review the day of. So once it's sent out, you can kind of review, and if you have questions, you can bring it to the meeting as well. Okay, if there are no questions, thank you, Artis.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, our esteemed Deputy Commissioner will come up and give her report.
Hello again. So when I got up this morning, I scratched my head up, but when I saw the snow, I was like, oh no, not again, not again, we cannot do this again. But luckily it didn't happen. Anyway, we have exciting news this evening, so I'll just get started. I want to bring regards from Commissioner Chan, who sends his wishes for a happy holiday and a new year, safe new year. Most of what I want to talk about really this evening is about community engagement. As we get ready to launch the biggest project that we have really in CSBG is the Community Needs Assessment in 2019. You know, we're going to have all kinds of projects between now and when we start doing the Community Needs Assessment. That means that a lot of the work that the NAB and the CAB are going to be doing is going to be very active. It's going to get going. So I'm just giving you a little bit of warning preview so you know that we'll be doing all kinds of projects and all kinds of questioning and surveying before that time to prepare for the Community Needs Assessment. We know that, you know, all over the city, the mayor's talking about civic engagement, and on all the offices in city government, he's really tasking people to think about community engagement and civic engagement and how people can get involved. So recently, Commissioner Chan had a conversation with the Deputy Mayor, Philip Thompson, and they talked about civic engagement and what that meant for DYCD. But we've always been in an agency, probably more than other agencies, would you say that really considers community engagement, and that's because CSBG is part of what we do, and sort of that philosophy goes throughout the DYCD. It doesn't matter that they're not part of CSBG, but that philosophy runs throughout. And so in having this conversation with the Deputy Mayor, Bill came back, or Commissioner Chan came back and tasked our research unit to come up with, to draft, or develop a framework of philosophy that we could use throughout DYCD for all programs, no matter the age or where they're funded from or whatever. And so that work is underway now. We are drafting, I've seen some of that language, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that's going to be implemented throughout all the different programs at DYCD. This is one of the big initiatives. But what does that do when you do a framework for an entire agency? What it has is everybody to focus, right, on the importance of civic engagement in the same way. And what it does, it has young people talking about it, and after school it has, you know, our NABs talking about it. It has, but it's not just talking about it, it's getting those things into action. So civic engagement really in the way that we, if I can anticipate what's gonna come out in the language, it's not just about coming to talk about it, it's not just about coming or doing things to comply with a funding agency, but it really is to activate community in thinking about how do they want to see what do they want to see their community become. So that's going to be very exciting. We'll present that framework if it's ready in our January meeting, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The second thing that I want to talk about is that we have been focusing a lot on leadership development among the NABs and in the CAB. And one of the things that you can talk about it a little bit, Anita, was that we've been doing the orientations, the new member orientations. Some of you have not been to the new member orientation yet. You're gonna have fun. But the new member orientations are a way for us to give a sense of what it is that we're doing, not just as part of a CAB or part of an NAB, but again, how that's connected back to your community and how you can best serve in these groups as volunteers. We rethought the way that we were doing the NAB, our team rethought the way we were doing the NAB orientation. And in the first one, we had 45 people, right? Yeah. We have 45 people. This room was on fire. They were asking questions. They were, you know, really getting to understand what it was that we were doing here and what we were supposed to be doing together. Very different than other years, I think. We also had a second orientation that had 20 people, so they were really well attended, that had 20 people, and that was held during the day so that the people who couldn't come for that time could come again. So this was Anita's idea, it worked out well. My understanding was that, I didn't get to come to that meeting, but my understanding was just as exciting for those NAB members as it was in the first session. So we're going to continue, and this is what I'm saying. When I started out this evening talking about those projects, a lot of opportunity for leadership development, not just for what you do in these rooms here at DYCD, but how you go back to your community and that you join other groups, that you can tell about CSBG, you tell about the NABs and the CABs, but also that you can discuss other issues that are part of your community engagement. So one thing that came up yesterday, which we were preparing. Mike, how long would you say we were preparing for the U.S. Government action?
I'd say we got the notice first week of December.
Right, first week of December. So we got a visit from the U.S. Remind me, what's the
Government Accounting Office.
Government Accountability Office, and they're really a watchdog for the Congress. And what they do is they want to come and look at different programs to see whether or not the government is spending their money in the right way. And they really wanted to review, in particular, two things. They wanted to review our outcomes. Really, is the money working to produce outcomes or achieve outcomes? And they also wanted to know a lot about our relationship with the state. And of course, we took that opportunity to completely show off. And so if you heard your ears ringing, that was because we were showing off about you. And we spent a lot of time, actually they were very engaged when we talked about the CAB and the NABs and how we worked with both these groups, but more importantly, how you've worked with us and been our partners in this work. We then took them, they were very, very inspired, that's what they told me anyway, that they felt inspired by the work and by what they heard. And then I took them out to 2 programs, and that was the seniors program and the fatherhood program. And there too, they had a wonderful time, and you might tell them that story when you get to do your presentation on what the seniors did when they finished the visit. Either way, it was, they asked a lot of questions about how we connect with the state. We talked about how the state really, if we have questions, they're always there to support us. They give us technical assistance, and they also work as partners with us. I don't know if this is unusual for the community action agencies, but that's our deal, and we're very proud of that we've built that relationship with both you and the state. So we'll get a report from them in a few months. I understand that it will be a public report, but just wanted to share with you that we were reviewed, and I think we came out with flying colors. And Artist did an amazing job too. She did a great presentation. I talked about the town ornamentations. So what did I forget? Oh no, I didn't forget anything. This is the excitement. So today, there's so much work, and we've amply justified that we needed more staff. Joe left, and this staff for NABLU has been dwindling over the years, right? It used to be a much bigger staff that went from what to what? What was it when you got
8 to 5?
Yeah. So we've been doing a lot of work, keeping a lot of people engaged, and so now it was time to hire staff. So we promoted Anita Antonetti to be the Director of Strategic Outreach for everything. So now you already know that Anita has a long history of community development. Probably you know how some kids get up, if they live and come from musical families, they wake up singing. Anita woke up community organizing. that's how it was. Right? I'm not lying, right? No, that's how she.
And we sang also.
That's nice. I did not know that. Okay. So obviously, Anita has all this historical insight, and she knows, she has all this practical knowledge and experience that's going to make all of this work better, easier, more expansive. Before she got here, though, she did have some experience before she got here, and it was significant because it really gave her a real sensibility about what is actually needed in the community to make it better, to not just in terms of service, but how that community is an asset. And actually, she's been leading a lot of the conversation about that, about, how do we get people to see that being in a situation that's poor is not being poor. It's just being in a situation that's poor that you can get out. So we thank you for all your encouragement, Anita. So before she got here, though, she was at Rock the Boat, Bank Street College of Education, and the United Bronx Parents, and I'm sure a few other organizations in there. I'm gonna let Anita talk a little bit after I finish my talking points, but then you'll get to address the group. Thanks. Can you give her another round of applause? Then I'm not finished with the good news, right? I'm also proud to announce that we also filled the position that was vacated by Joe Catcherbone. And I'm happy to introduce James Bernard, who's the new Senior Director of Strategic Outreach. Where is he? Oh, there you go. Say hi. So James has an extensive background in community outreach and developing strategic partnerships. He was a labor organizer. He was with Service Employees International Union. He founded, was it two magazines? Two magazines, where he wrote extensively about the intersection between hip-hop culture and social change. James brings over 20 years of community organizing experience to NAVLU and relevant prior work experiences in government and philanthropy and in the private sector. And he's also an attorney, a public speaker, a writer, and an editor. I know that we're going to get a lot of creative juices going, given the complementary skills here. But also, we also have an amazing NAVLU team that is going to actually in the next few weeks grow as well. So let's make those introductions the next time you come. So, always one of the challenges that we have is filling the seats from the electeds. And so of course, we want to ask your help. I know that James wants to talk about that a little bit. But if you remember last year, there was one of the Queensborough president, right?
Yes. Susie
right. So you're the one that did this. Okay. So
Not alone.
Okay, not alone. But anyway, we were able to fill all the Queen seats. And of course, if we find a promising practice that works, we're going to try and do it again. So Anita connected with somebody at the Brooklyn Borough President's office.
Candace Julian, who's a member of CAT.
But she's not here today, right?
She's not here. She has two community board meetings at the same time.
Okay.
She had to go to.
So Candace has gotten together with Anita, and we'll be doing it again at the Brooklyn Borough President's office next week.
No, next month. We're going to have an info, what they call an info session, to bring members of the Brooklyn community to learn about the NABs and most likely fill out an application and join the board. So that'll be, when the date happens, I'll let you know. If you're interested in attending, you can come as well, because it's a public meeting.
Okay. So if you have any ideas on how we can get these seats filled, please let us know. Get in touch with James, get in touch with Anita. Do they have a list of the seats that are empty?
Yep.
It's in their packet?
Yep.
Great. So if you look at your area and see that, or there's an elected that you know that you can make a call, that you can say, listen, these seats need to be filled. We have to do that consistently because these seats, we need major representation. And we are working on the NAB part. We're trying to figure out ways to get every seat filled. It's really our goal to do that. So we only could do that with your help and with the help of the NABs and other people who might know elected officials. Finally, we are in the Christmas season, so every year we always do this at DYCD. We have our toy drive, and I think they extended the time, right, for the toy drive. Tomorrow. That was the last day? Yeah. So if somebody brings a toy after that, they're not going to accept it?
I think we'll take it.
Okay, so if you have any toys or toys that you want to donate, please see Patrice. She'll get you to do that. So right now, what I'd like to ask is for James and Anita to come and address the group. Okay. Thank you.
Hello. Alright, how are you? Jay's going to talk about recruitment. He has an idea that we tried out at the Neighborhood Advisory Board orientation meeting, and it was very productive. So I'm going to let you start.
Oh.
Or whatever you want to talk about.
Okay.
Just,
Okay,
just use the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You see how humble she is? She did that very smoothly. She did that very smoothly. I want you to talk about yourself for once. How do you feel? Yes. How do you feel? For once. How do you feel? And in this role, what do you anticipate?
In this role, I anticipate to do all the work I've been doing for a long time now. So, as I said, I anticipate continuing the work I've been doing for a long time now. It's very much needed now. It seems to me that we're in a time period that was very much like when I was growing up in the late 60s and early 70s. We need to work together. And because one person lives in the Bronx doesn't mean that person doesn't know what's going on in the rest of the city or isn't part of what's going on in the rest of the city. And we have to help. We really have to help each other. And we really have to cross to different parts of the city. And if we need to go to Washington and Albany, we need to do that as well. And we have to be prepared for that. And it's my hope that the neighborhood advisory boards will step up and also see how they are part of that. And our biggest goal that I think we need to do besides recruitment and having full boards is to get the boards out into their communities so that they're known all over their communities. And as you know, former board members that I'm talking to here, you're not only part of the neighborhood advisory board, you're part of other groups and other committees and other boards, and you live there every day, so you know, even now, being a CAB member, you live there every day and you know what's going on. And our representatives from the elected officials, they also know. They're in the district offices every day, they're in the community every day doing different things. So that's my hope. That's what I would like to see, and that's what is needed right now, especially since the Congress is now looking into what we're doing and has sent them to come and look at us. You know, it wasn't a nice just a nice gesture. There's something behind that. We have to look out because we don't need this program. This program has been around for 54 years, so we should have it continue for as long as there's anybody in need. So is that enough then?
I can't really add anything to that, but I do want to say that I'm humbled to be part of this team. I've been in learning mode, and I've been focused on adding value and not just taking up space. We have a huge focus right now on recruitment. It's really important that not only do we fill the seats, but the seats are representative of the community, okay? And I'm going to be, as a team, we're going to do this, but also I personally am going to invest a lot of time communicating with you about that. And not only that, but working more closely with electeds, because I feel like people have to understand, like Anita said, these are different times. And these times call for this type of civic engagement. It's very rare that there's something institutionalized like this for people in communities to help make decisions about their own communities. And this is a model, but we have to make the model work better, okay? So that's thank you. So I'm just reiterating what she said. But today I do have an exercise that I'm going to hand out. I have a form. And I would like for everybody here to think of 2 people. I don't care where they live, okay? Because we'll find out or figure out what board they can be on. You know people all through the city. I said at the NAB training, I said you could write down my mother, my cousin. And actually I got a form that said my sister, my cousin. And that's exactly what I was looking for. And then I had other people, we're not asking for contact information right now. We're asking you to think of names so we can follow up with you about how best to contact those folks. Okay? So I'm gonna hand these out, and at the end, if you could just give them to me or give them to one of the team members, that would be a really good first step.
Okay, let me just say, mentioning team members, it's not just James and me. We have Jorge Mendezala, who's been with the unit for a very long time, has been in the community for a very, very, very long time. We have Susan Patterson, who's come way also, and we have Karen, who's the one that you'll talk to when you call the office. She knows everything that's going on, and if she doesn't know it, she's going to find out. So you can always talk to any one of them. That's our team. We have another team here, and that's Community Action Programs, and they're sitting right there. That's Patrice, Nara, Noreen, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I saw Nara. Never mind. Noreen, I'm sorry. April, and they deal with the monitoring of the programs and making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's dotted. So that's them. We also have Booker, who's hiding in the back, and he's the one that knows the deputy commissioner where she's supposed to be, where she is, and what's needed. And he's also the keeper of our records for the state requirements across, which is our accountability is coming up in January, and also the triennial report. Booker's the one that keeps those records, so he's very important. And then of course Mike, you know, and you're going to hear from him very soon. So just to make sure that everybody's accounted, we have Armine, who's our assistant general counsel, who makes sure that we're doing everything legally, and she's in the back there. So that's our staff. Just so you know.
Let's have a round of applause for the DYCD staff.
I forgot Molly, who takes all the photos.
That's right.
And you're on YouTube and also the DYCD website every time we have a meeting. I'm sorry, Molly.
Thank you.
And then our lovely stenographer that's listening to every word, and you gotta say your name. I need that today. I didn't say when you're speaking so that you get it.
Great, thank you for that, Anita. So those forms are being passed out, so if you can really fill this out. And James, this is building upon, I think I mentioned this to you when we were introduced, conversation that is taking place. So I'm glad to see that you're really spearheading this. And I love to see progressiveness within DYCD. Everyone knows how hard Anita works, and to see her get recognized and to get elevated in this position is wonderful. So I'm very happy for Anita. You know, 2 meetings ago we were here congratulating Gian, who we all know worked hard, and he's been elevated and doing great things within DYCD in his new role. So this is great to see. And James, you seem pretty confident, which is going to work well, because the deputy commissioner only goes 0 to 100. She's the one that's like in the fast lane, like people behind you to move over. So I think you'll fit in really well. Any questions on the deputy commissioner's report? Okay, great. So let's jump into the committee reports. The summary is in your packet. In the absence of Linda Walters, who is the chair of our governance committee report, I'm going to ask Anita if she can just touch on some of the points that was discussed in committee there.
Okay, the minutes are in your packet on page 10 of the packet. And there was an update on the CAP elections and vacancies. Region 8 and Region 8 Manhattan 9 and 12 There were potential candidates, but they haven't submitted their biography as of yet. So once we have that, we can get that election underway. Region 15, Brooklyn 14 and 17, Ms. Rhonda Joseph, who currently is the NAB chair representative for Brooklyn, has been elected to that position. So that position is now filled. We're going to have to look for a new Brooklyn chair rep next month. And Region 17, we are still, we're looking for somebody. We do have a person. We're waiting for the biography to come in so we can start the elections. And then it says here upcoming vacancies, but since this is a meeting after the November meeting, Dalia Soto, who was with the board for the last 6 years and who came to every single committee meeting, non-stop, unless she was ill, she didn't miss a meeting. Her term ended, but Dalia said that she would look into joining the NAB again. Good for Dalia. And anybody who's left the board in June, we will have a recognition ceremony for those people who have turned out or who have left for other reasons. Okay, and the absentee report, this is important. You get one excused absence per program year that started in September. After that, we start counting the number of absences. If you have 3 absences, you're off the board automatically, just so everybody knows. So we will be following up with the people who did not attend today. And your mic is going on. Excuse me?
You said the CAB board, 3 absences?
3 absences and you're off the board. The first one is a freebie, that's the excused absence. So there's not much to report here now. Probably at the next meeting, governance committee meeting, there'll be something. And let's see. So the staff shared the annual compliance review of organizational standards, or what's also called the ACROSS, that I had mentioned earlier. This is a report that we're required to file with the state, and the deadline for that is January 31st. So we're going to be working very hard to get all the information organized and ready to go to the state. And that's about it. So the rest, more detail is in your packet in the minutes there.
Thank you, Anita. Any questions on the governance committee report? Okay, if not, I'm going to ask Ariel to go through the strategic partnerships committee report.
Hello. So we had our meeting. We talked a lot about NAB recruitment, which we've already spent a good deal of time talking about tonight. One of the other things that we spoke about was to let us know if there are any events happening in your community where it might be helpful for us to publicize becoming an NAB member. So in addition to also thinking about who you know in your circles who might be interested in becoming a member, also just think about if there's any community events that are happening that could be a good recruitment environment. I guess kind of along those same lines, we've talked a lot about getting youth involved in the NABs. So DYCD staff has been working with Beacons and Cornerstones to try to recruit youth councils that are already in existence to get more youth on the NAB boards. And that could also help to fill some of the vacancies, and it would be really invigorating to have some more young people become involved in the work that we're doing. So we're continuing to talk about that, and also ways that we can incentivize youth to get involved with the NAB. We talked about the NAB Ambassador Project, and we're expecting a report to come out soon to let us know how the projects went over the summer that some of you were involved with. And then going forward, we're going to keep working on NAB recruitment and also thinking about the orientation format. Short and sweet.
Thank you, Ariel. Any questions on the strategic partnership report? Okay, so Tamika Robinson, who had to leave, oversees the program committee. So I'll really quickly recap that meeting. They met on October 17th. Our Assistant Commissioner Bobbitt kind of gave an overview of the OY program. and some of the finer points of that, as well as the YAIP program and SYEP. And then there was a presentation by Tandra Turner, who is from this organization, Policy Studies Associates, that's based out of Washington, D.C., that did an evaluation of the program. And I understand that there was a healthy conversation in terms of that presentations. The strategies and recommendations were provided to the committee in the executive committee summary form, which we all reviewed at the executive committee in terms of that specific feedback. Mike, am I missing anything in terms of that? I know you were present. Okay, thank you. So are there any questions regarding the program, committee report? Okay. Thank you. We are seeing increased participation in the committee, so we've talked about this at the last couple of meetings, so thank you all that have committed to joining the committee and attended the meetings and helped move the meetings along. Unlike the CAB meeting, you can call into a committee meeting. So we'd like to have, every member represented on at least one committee. You can join every committee, or you can join the committee that you feel you have an interest in and that benefits you. And if you need any insight on the finer points of each of the committee, you can speak with myself or another member of DYCD. But you don't have to be present at the meeting physically to be a part of the committee meetings. It's good if you can, because sometimes there's presentations there and you will want to be there. But if you like to call into the meeting, that is allowed. And I know we have room still on all of the committees for additional participation. So if you have not yet picked a committee, not sure what committee you would like to be a part of, certainly talk to us and maybe we can help you finalize that decision. So next on the agenda, I'm going to ask Mike Bobbitt to come up, Assistant Commissioner of Community Development. He's going to give the annual report on CSBG funding and programs. And I believe after that, Astris is going to come up and give the interim report on NAB Ambassador Project program.
So Astrid is under the weather. She's sick today, so I'm just going to do a real quick overview of that project, and then Mike will do his outcomes report. So you might remember that when we did the community needs assessment in 2016, then later last year, or actually this year, we ended doing the Community Ambassadors Project. And that was basically to keep the data fresh. Whatever we found out in 2016, we wanted to find out if that was still relevant to the community. And so we had the NEBs go out and do community conversations. And basically they went out to different meetings that were happening in their community, and they asked what was relevant that had been an issue or a need in 2016. Overall, there were 350 community conversations in 93% of the NDAs, 39% out of 42 NDAs. That is very cool, right? That deserves a clap. That's very hard. Now, what does that mean? In terms of conversations, we really take it to heart that we need to be having community conversations and finding out whether constantly, hey, I didn't know you were here, hi. And constantly updating, right? Updating so that we know what these communities need. What's going to happen next is that, what's happening now is that Astrid Spada, I think you met her when she did a presentation before on the data. She's going to create community profiles for each NDA, outlining the service gaps that meeting attendees most frequently reported being missing from the community needs assessment. Then after that, the next steps in the process is that DYCD will determine the methodology, or how we're going to do the survey for setting priorities using both the data from 2016 and the Ambassadors Project to then create this sort of, I keep saying hybrid templates, right? But a template that we could use consistently beyond that point, so that then what'll happen is we could compare data from now to whenever we decide that we need to change the survey. That was very important because the last 3 surveys have been very different. So we were not able to compare the data. We didn't know if the same needs kept coming up. So now that's what we're gonna do. We took 216, which you know was a 7-page survey, to the community conversations, and now we'll design something that can be established for a longer and that has some strategic methodology to it, so we can continue to use it as a template. But we'll keep you posted on that. And I know Astrid was really excited to do this report, but I hope I did it justice. But she gets really excited about all the data and that she would have had more detail, but the next time around she will come to the meeting. Mike?
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you, Anita. And again, welcome, James. So while we're getting the PowerPoint, the Deputy Commissioner asked me to share an anecdote. So again, without a lot of advance notice, we are hearing, and thank you, our colleague Amy Kohler from New York State Department of State is here, so thank you for the past few years serving for the state. Yes, please. They always have the practice of observing how community action agencies engage their board, and since we pack a lot of data and information into the November meeting, we're thankful that again they've come to listen and to observe this. But anyway, so this state let us know, and General Accountability Office, without a lot of notice, said, hey, can we come and see what you're doing? And initially, they wanted to spend 2 hours with us. That's like a board meeting, plus some. Think about how much we get done, how much we try to get done to board. What are they going to learn from an hour and a half? You know? So very tactfully, I asked the staff, well, when are you coming in, and how long can you stay? So initially, they wanted to come from about 9:30 to 11:30, and we were able to revise that. So they left about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But they were happy that they had stayed. And so, as the Deputy Commissioner pointed out, we did kind of a dog and pony show. They got to meet different departments. But and as good as that was, the best thing they reported was going out in the field. So, you know, we spared no expense. We rode the subway. They rode the subway. So we have people from Boston and D.C. Having the same adventures that our line staff. I see April smiling. The same stuff that we do. We showed them how we do what we do. We went to the Lower East Side to see the seniors program at Grand Street Settlement. So we're walking from the train, was it Essex, right? Around the projects, we went to one side, went around to another side. We're pointing out, yes, the seniors from this building, this building, this building. All these people come to this program, right? And Macy's apparently had some intervention, some giveaway. So the senior program director said, you may not see all the seniors because, you know, when Macy's is offering free stuff, some of the seniors want to go get the free stuff and have some food or something like that. So we said, don't worry about it. You know, we did a lot of administrative stuff in the morning, so we're a little late, no problem, right? So we go from the first program site and see some of the facility. We go to the second site where the seniors were. And I mean, I shadow the staff and I see some of these things, but I got to tell you, I was delighted and a little bit gleefully surprised. So this is the first thing we see where we're signing in. Imagine about 8 seniors, and I'm not going to sing it because I'm going to do justice to the song. It's mostly Asian American seniors with some Latinos and singing the song, and there's about 8 of them doing it, and the last person had sort of a walker that she's sitting on. And she processes to the end, and you turn right back around, right? They're all like, oh, hi, are you here to see something? Yeah, we're here to see exactly what you do when we're not around. That's exactly what they do when we're not around. So we did that. The program director came, and before she could make any formal introductions, they knew that somebody was coming. We had maybe 15 or so seniors. And I've been out with the staff a lot, but I've never received like an ovation. Sometimes it's like, I'm glad the city is checking up on what they just they're like almost cheering that we're there. So you see there's about 3, they're not auditors, I keep thinking there's 3 people from government accountability. I was like, well, that's really nice, that's really pleasant. So then they sit down to observe what they're doing. There's a group playing mahjong. Some people are watching a video, some people are playing different games. They were asking the staff, like, why do you do this, why do you do that? There's a lot about keeping the seniors' mental acuity together, hand-eye coordination together, reducing isolation by, having different things for them to do. There tells about an advocacy project they're doing because there's a gate that got closed between the first building to the second building is why we had to go around the corner. So they've been working on finding more times a day to keep that gate open so that the seniors don't have to do the same thing that we had to do. So it's just a wide-ranging program. The case manager was I didn't tell you, the case manager was a young Latina person. He said, how have you been? I said, about 7 months. The seniors tell me what to do. You can't argue with them. I just try to help them or whatever. And then the cake came around. There was so much that was going on in this side of the scene. It was like hot chocolate. It was beautiful. And at least a half a dozen seniors, different faces, different walks of life, different backgrounds, were very happy and they wanted to be interviewed by the GAO. So you want to find out what they do? Well, I'll tell you what this program does for me. So that was just one whole slice of life. And then we rushed from there to go up to Midtown Community Court on West 54th Street, where they listened to a fatherhood program session, the title of which was Love and Sex. So I was mildly nervous about how this was going to go, but so we got to do it. We got to see what it is, right? These guys, I'm always pleased to see when you do group work and there's coherence among the cohort of people who are in the program. So you have a lot of dads, maybe they're begrudgingly joining the program, but wherever these guys started at the end of the summer, early fall, one guy's talking about, oh yeah, and when I met Mr. So-and-so's daughter, she's 16, wonderful composure, she's really a great lady, he's done a great job, just to know that whatever they do in that program, they want to introduce their children to one another. And I've seen this with the dads with younger kids before, where they set up play dates from the program. But that was the program to me right there. We could have left after 5 minutes. I think we stayed for about 20 minutes and debrief with the staff. So it's always fun for us when we get to go out in the field. And Patrice is nodding because I owe her some visits. I got to go shadow more of the folks. But whenever we go, it's edifying, and that's what they said too. Like, it was great meeting all of you. But hearing directly the lived experiences from the clients and having their testimony, that was the whole visit. So we'll wait and see what makes it into the report. They said they don't generally identify stuff, who said what, unless it's really good. So maybe we will be identified, because I think it was really good. So thank you for giving me a chance to share that. All right, on to the next part of the fund. By a quick show of hands, how many of the board members were present last November when we did this presentation? We have some turnover. Okay, so I'll just spend a little bit of time just in the overview. So as was referenced earlier by the Deputy Commissioner and by Anita, the Department of State, in its oversight of us, looks to see us demonstrate our compliance related to national organizational standards. So we're still in great shape. We've made, we're 50 of 50, so we can give ourselves a round of applause again for your work, our work, demonstrating this. And reporting our results and sharing this with the Community Action Board actually is part of the evidence that we're doing what we say we're going to do. So just a quick reminder that not that we don't want to do it anyway, but it also helps us deliver on best practices. Right? So that's one of the reasons why we do this. So again, the results that we're reviewing today relate to the city fiscal year, so programs that started in July of last year and ended this past June 30th. And we're very, very thankful to Amy's colleagues in the Department of State. Although we operate on the federal fiscal year, which starts October 1st and ends September 30th, because our work is from July to June, they allow us to report that way, so there's a lot less of having to adjust explanations that I have to do with them and that I have to do with you, so it makes it a lot easier. The year in review. And I want to again acknowledge Booker, because we've been doing this presentation for a while, and I think now that we've hit upon this format, it's elegant, it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. And another thing here is I'm actually going to be able to move with velocity related to a lot of the programs, because as I explained the results, we really only have to talk about where there were variances. So with regard to our NDA high school programs, And again, these programs target high school age youth who are in school. They may be at risk of failing a subject or a GPA. Patrice agrees with me. I didn't have GPA parts of this next year. Okay. And so our target was to have 1,385 students enrolled. We had 1,524. That's 110% of that target. And through the triennial, what would we go, 3 grading period? That's not really triennial. Okay. Yeah. But through the 3 grade periods over the course of the year, we look to see academic improvement. The after-school program that's providing complementary supportive services to the school day. So our target was to see academic improvement in 912 instances, and we saw that in 782, so that's 86%. So when we report to the state on a quarterly and annual basis, we really look to explain variances that are less than 80% or more than 20%, so we consider that program to be on target for the year. The NDA Opportunity Youth Program was referenced earlier in the program committee report, so this group knows, and you see in the package, it targets what we call disconnected adolescents. It's young people between the ages of 16 and 24 who are not enrolled in school, or not working at the time they enroll in these programs. Our target was to reach 792 of them this year. We reached 766, that's 97%. And one of the measures, projected work readiness skills, as evidenced by once they're placed in a supportive part-time job, they do an assessment at week 3, it's a 14-week part-time job. At week 10, they do a follow-up assessment. So we expected, or that we projected, to see improvement in 504 cases. So the slide reads 326, and I want to explain, although that suggests 65%, I went through the data earlier today with the Deputy Director, Patrice. It actually is 493 on target. So I asked, well, why is that? Sometimes we have clerical reporting difficulties and challenges, and that's what's happened in this case. So in the way the database system works, there's places where the agency has to put in an outcome, and there's other places where they have to put in a benchmark. And they've appropriately accounted for this activity under the benchmarks. We've been having to do a lot of training and retraining on the system. And I've mentioned at other times that over time we're going to move into a new database system. So we're going to try to figure out ways, and you'll hear me mention that again later on. So we're looking at some of these practice examples of things that we need to clarify going forward. So that program actually was on target as well. With regard to our housing assistance programs, and I think the objective is revealed in the name, individuals and families who are housed, so it's not a homeless program, who are housed, who are in danger of losing safe and affordable shelter. There may be landlord disputes, threat of eviction, etc. We had a projected 3,333 served. It was 2,750 served. That's 83% of the target. And in terms of projected resolving housing problems, the projection is 1,570. And we serve 1,245. So that's right at 80%. We consider that to be within our expected range. We have talked at other times about the Healthy Families Program. I think over the course of the next year, you'll probably hear us talk more about the utility and the nimbleness of this program. Individuals and families can come in for a wide range of needs, and the programs will help them navigate public systems, other systems to access benefits and services. So that program, we projected we'd serve 3,483 persons or families. We served 3,475. That's 99.8% of our projection. And in terms of our outcomes, we projected to reach 1,876. And in fact, we reached 2,215. That's 118% of our projection. So that's a good story. And as glad as we are of that, it's convenient that it's not 121. Because there's less riding when it's 118 than it's 121, but we would take 121 if we had 121. Our seniors program, so I mentioned this story. Some of the programs focus on social cultural recreation, some focus on access services, and some do both. So for the year, we looked to serve 3,638 seniors, and in fact served 3,823, so that's 105% of our projection. In terms of helping those who came in to access services, we projected we would reach outcomes for 1,328. We actually did 1,546, that's 116%. And in terms of projected well-being by routine attendance in these classes as a measure of social cultural recreation. We projected 1,020 outcomes. We had 1,268. It's actually 124. And so we have to wonder why that's going so well. I think it's because of all the dancing, and I think it's because of all the cake, and I think it's because of all the music, that sort of thing, right? So, and I really do think that, actually, yeah. In terms of our NDA adult literacy programs, again, and like I said, with this we can kind of, it's not overwhelming, but like when you see the numbers largely speak for themselves. Our NDA adult literacy programs are also on target. We projected we would serve 1,565 persons and served 1,679. That's 107% of our projection. And so I want to explain why, with a projected 507 that would have some projected gains in their ABE levels and a projected 236 in their high school equivalency levels, why the numbers seem low. So I had mentioned part of the administrative work we're having to do with providers related to putting the data in the right bucket. So relatedly, Capricorn, although it's served us very well over the past several years, is not a perfect system. And so as we look to distinguish what's a benchmark, what's an increase, what's an outcome, there's a lot of data that's getting lost by the system until we move to the new system. And that's really what the story is here. And I reported this last year, and I told you last year, it will be fixed when we move to the new system. So I want to remind you, we talked about this before, we just haven't moved to the new system yet, but the literacy program just went into the new system starting this fiscal year, so we should have this fixed. So the thing that was happening is, the outcome was a measurement of a significant gain. And the benchmark we were looking for was whether there was any increase at all. And however the system, and I compliment our IT colleagues for so much hard work that they do, but however the algorithm is set up, it was actually knocking out everybody who was making the outcome, when it should have been doing everybody who made the outcome and led up to the outcome. So it's actually operating kind of backwards. And the number actually would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 444 rather than 160. Rather than 308. So I hope we'll have cleaner data for you next year when we move to the new system. The immigrant services programs, right on target with a projected 1,271 individuals, families served, 1,322. That's 104% of projections, and the data is correct, it's just the legend is incorrect. We're talking about people who have accessed services or related to civics, etc. And the projection there, 544, the actual 641, that reflects 118% of projections, so that's great. You'll perhaps remember we changed program models, and so next year we'll probably change the slide a little bit. So when we say immigrant families, we now refer to that as comprehensive services for immigrant families. The historical objectives were to help the children do well in school and to coach the parents in terms of that relationship and stabilize the family. Under the new model, which I think is a great kind of two-generation model, the whole family is approached, and one of the objectives is that 50% of the goals relating to all of the family members get met. So this is the inaugural year under this new model, and with a projected 302 families served, we had 272 families served, so that's 90% of the enrollment objective. We think that that's great. So with regard to the matter of the projected 217 outcomes of this type, and the actual outcomes being 96, this has a lot to do with the adjustment to the new model. You know, it's a new program, we have new providers, and because the constellation of family members can vary so widely, you could have, I want to read my notes so I can choose correctly, but you could have one family with 6 members, and if 2 people make significant strides, but it doesn't reach the 50%, it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of individual work being done. It's just a statement we're trying to make about stabilizing the family. And so the staff shared that there are actually about 715 individuals served across those families, and that there were 409 goals achieved. So that could be a stew of multiple goals achieved by single family members across the system. So we're going to keep the measurement for now. We just piloted this program, but we want to let you know sometimes we have to look and unpack what's behind the numbers. Okay, we've talked at other times about the immigrant legal services, which are now being overseen by HRA. I would say in summary, those programs have had a very successful year in terms of immigrant legal services. We reached 98% of the enrollment objective, it's either 1366, and reached 94% of the outcome in terms of citizenship and other services, 910 related to the 984. In terms of the services for immigrant youth, similarly, the performance was great. We're looking at 187 of a projected 191 youth served, that's 98%, and 120 of a projected 119 outcomes, so that is 100%. There's two other portfolios that we work with HRA to oversee, that's Immigrant Domestic Violence Services. So there again, 294 families served, they were projected 278, that's 106% of that target. And 94 outcomes that were projected, 104 is 90% of that target. And then finally we have Immigrant Services, Immigrant Workers portfolio. The 331 of a projected 324, that's 102% of the enrollment target. The 195 of 192 is 102% of that outcome target. So those programs have been doing fantastic, and we're pleased with their performance. So that brings us, there's two other literacy programs I want to target, citywide initiatives. So the adolescent literacy program reached its enrollment target with 195 of a projected 179 folks, so that's 109%. And don't panic because you're looking at 0% outcomes, but they didn't really have 0% outcomes. Is the same thing that I pointed to earlier, was why their team is glad to be moving into the new system. And I asked the staff about this, and they said that they had 51 outcomes in the first quarter alone. So for the year, they ended up at about 100 outcomes. There's two factors. One is the system, which we're looking to fix. But the other one I want to remind this group, because of the reporting period, the city fiscal year ends on June 30th. Adolescent literacy is looking at students who are in school, and most of those outcomes are not reported within the period. They don't get the test results until August. So, oh, thank you. See, the board knows this stuff, right? So it actually makes sense that the numbers would look like this. But in terms of some of the early numbers, we'll be able to fix that when we move to the new system. As far as English as a second language programs, those are right on target. So 2,421 is 105% of the projected 2,301. And 1,482 outcomes is 111% of the projected 1,335. Looking at the Fatherhood Initiative, Fatherhood actually had a great year, and I wish Scott was here for this presentation, so there'll be witnesses that I'm saying this in the public forum. Make sure that Scott knows this, right? So there were projected 1,186 dads served of a projected 1,460, and that's 81% of the target. But I mean, fatherhood is also, I have a personal passion as much as I care about the whole portfolio. But to see 797 of a projected 792, and that's 101% of the goal. So you'll convey that I said attaboy to Scott and attaboy to Allison for the coaching conversations they've had. Again, new model where we added, as the board will remember, access services and as much attention or newfound attention on helping stabilize the dad as there was his self-reported progress in his financial material support of his children and his emotional engagement of the children. So new model off to a good start. The board is always interested in summer youth employment program, and unsurprising, SYP had another good year all around, and certainly related to the CSBG funding that was used. So we had 1,075 of a projected 1,048 youth served with the CSBG dollars. I made 1,008 of a projected 982 outcomes, so that's 103 and 103% of that of those projections. The program committee had a presentation not that long ago about the Family Development Credential. So this is a strength-based credential that helps the program participants consider the family as a system. And that's certainly a great fit when we think about 2-gen programs like Fatherhood, Comprehensive Service for Immigrant Families, but other work that happens out in the community. And FDC had a great year this year as well, with 129 of a projected 150 persons served, that's 86% of that goal, and 105 outcomes of 117, that's 90% of that goal. We've also had presentations about the capacity building portfolio. I think we might have them come back to the program committee at some time. And in terms of our capacity building generally, and both the training and on-site technical assistance, we actually had a great year. So 3,041 of a projected 2,463 persons enrolled. That's 123%. And it's also just plain a really big number. So we're very excited about that. And in terms of knowledge gain and skill gain, 1,466 of a projected 1,390. That's 105% of that projection. So I'll circle back in a second to what's happening there. The third one, though, is on-site capacity building engagements. We had 75 of a projected 80 engagements. So that's 94% of that target. So I've reported over the past few years there was an institutional shift where maybe we were targeting like doing like maybe 100, 150 or so of those on-site, and we've reduced that number a little bit to really blow out a lot of training. And I think for reasons the Deputy Commissioner has pointed to a little bit in this meeting, certainly across several meetings, if we think about our role in community development and community engagement and increasing the capacity wherever we're making investments, and there's been a lot of uptake about that. So when I was preparing for today's presentation, it struck me as funny because I looked at the notes, and every quarter people give some sort of analysis, and the first thing said, most of the capacity building trainings start at the start of the school year, and they felt initially there was a drop in people attending workshops. So obviously by the end of the year there's not a drop in people attending workshops. They certainly more than made up for it. And institutionally, that unit has called the other units together to ask what are they observing, what do they want more of. So they continue to try to be nimble and supportive. I am not going to do the percentages for this section. I'm just going to give you a quick editorial relating to this. So as part of our reporting to the state, we report on our internal agency capacity building. And so we get that information for human resources. So some of our projections seem right on target, and some of them may seem wildly off, and that's pretty much the story. We're either right about where we're supposed to be, or the actual looks like zero. And that has to do with some of it has to do with the timing. When we prepare the report, we have to make annual projections. And then institutionally, at points in time, DYCD may change its practices. So some of these trainings, when we first started projecting the numbers, we thought they were going to be annualized. And then AHS, oh no, that's a bi-annual training. And the new staff training depends on how many new staff we actually brought on. Or we're recharacterizing what we do with seasonal workers. And so that's why some of these projections seem right on target, but you see diversity. It doesn't mean we're not invested in diversity. It means last year we reported that number to you, and we'll have that number to report to you next year. That's pretty much the story there. You can see pretty much across the board. I would say the only one, and then thank you, Booker, we're getting a little bit more sophisticated with you guys. Instead of projected 2-year anti-corruption training, and this is the year that we did it, so that's why it looks like we had over 200% of our projections. Last but not least, when we talk about partnerships, we made an institutional decision. We first didn't look at the CBOs at all as partners, and we explained partnership has a certain legal definition for the city of New York, and we explained that to the Department of State, and the guidance they gave was, you can define partnerships very loosely. Just whoever you do work with, you can consider as a part. Okay, so because of that, we still historically present to you the number of delegate agencies we're funding with CSBG. So our target was 267, and we worked with 267. But to me, the more relevant news to this group is through your continued engagement, we count your participation. And you can see there's a wide array of stakeholders, whether it's the for-profit business community or local government, local electeds, as James and Anita spoke to, various housing consortiums, and other folks that make the CAB what it is. And so we expect full attendance, we project full attendance, we count your attendance, and then we report on your attendance. So I want to thank you for allowing us to demonstrate that. And with that, that concludes my report. Sorry, asked, are there any questions?
Of course.
Okay, are there any questions?
We believe everything you said.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? I know we have a couple of hands. David Alexander first.
Thank you. A great presentation as usual. My question is, the numbers that we're looking at are the cumulative numbers based on the programs that these, let me see, I thought that I had figured out how to say it well. Okay, let's take something for instance. The high school. the projected number, are these the numbers that are for all the community, all of the agencies?
Yes.
Okay. Now my question is.
Patrice, how many high school programs are there? 30 what?
We have 40.
40, okay.
Okay.
So each contract has a projected enrollment target and an outcome target. And so we add those numbers up, and then with our database and the staff going out and validating data, we look and see what actually happened. And this is what we're reporting to you now.
Okay, now my tricky question.
Okay.
Is it possible to do a breakdown to where these, where you're funding, so that we can look at, like, for instance, Brownsville might have a high level of educational deficiencies, and you have a program in the community that addresses that. So is there any way to find out which programs are doing these services and where?
Yes. Yeah, the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is for each NDA, we can let the CAB know which programs are funded to serve that NDA. So there's probably a series of charts we can put together. And then I would defer to the board chair and the board in terms of how you want to receive that information, engage with that information. We can deliver it to you. I could see how it could get weedy, but that doesn't mean we won't deliver it to you. It's
Well, of course I'll ask a question.
Sure, sure.
You know,
Yeah.
because I would
Not
like
hard,
to address that within the community.
Sure.
To help you come up with clearer pictures of the numbers and whether it's actually working or is something wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that would be important.
So just so you know for context, so what the staff does, Patrice is anticipating what I'm going to say, right? So she'll sit with her program managers, and high school is one of her areas.
Right.
So she will look at, not even wait till the end of the year, but let's say now it's the end of the year, and look and see, those are the aggregate numbers, but you still want to know, you're supposed to enroll 30 kids, how many do you enroll? You're supposed to enroll 47 kids, how many do you enroll? So they do that over the course of the year,
Right.
and importantly in the middle of the year before it's too late. What other strategies can you try to get these kids in?
Exactly.
Because it's a program design that expects that they get 250 hours. So you can't make that up if you don't enroll kids until April or May. You gotta enroll them in September or October. You're already a little behind.
You know what would be cool? For us to do a presentation, Patrice, about how we manage.
Yeah.
What if this
That'd be
looks
fun.
like? What if we ask? This way you get an idea of how we come up with these numbers.
You do a little role play, a little mock.
I do.
Okay.
I think someone had a question down there.
Now, you answered my question already.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All right.
good.
I have a question about projected enrollment and what those numbers are based on.
There's an expectation for each program where DYCD has suggested some elements of program design as well as a price per participant. And so if you receive X number of dollars, that assumes so many slots. And we've tried to continue to inject reasonableness in the outcome projections. So I mean, I could pick on high school in particular. What's the outcome rate? 40 to 60%, right? 70%. Who's 40 to 60? Who am I thinking? I'm thinking OY, exactly. So we knew that program was going to be hard. And if you're looking to recruit young people who are disconnected, you're not going to have 95% of them do whatever the thing is. You know what I mean? And so we've tried to, again, inject reason. And the other thing, the reason why we do that and state that is we know that agencies want to receive contracts. So we don't want to have encourage providers to say, well, I can do 101%. They're not. And then we'll have to penalize you. We don't want to do that. So let's be reasonable from the outset. And we have a whole, you've mentioned Astrid twice today. The agency has a whole planning program integration evaluation unit. So before we release a concept paper or RFP, we do look at other models. We project what we think the right staffing plan is. CBOs have opportunities to give feedback. So then once an RFP has gone out, there is some sense that what DYC is asking for is reasonable. Even if everyone doesn't love it exactly, at least it's reasonable. Please. And most folks love it.
Victoria Camarada Curdo, and I'm with Region 14. You gave a very detailed report, but I love the way you said you were unpacking numbers, and I'm going to call it the unpacking for clarity of the numbers. And for example, if we have CBOs, community-based organizations, that are taking care of senior citizens, I know seniors could go from one program with one CBO and then go and double dip to another. So are the numbers based on what each CBO, senior citizen intake, or even a youth? You know, I may be involved in basketball with this organization, and then I can go and play soccer with this other one. Are we counting them as, for each service that they take, as another part of the projection? How does
yes, no, that's a very good question. So the simple answer is we're talking about unduplicated persons. So you could have a 31-year-old dad enroll in a fatherhood program, and at some point in time, he, with his staff, realized, you know, you would really benefit from a literacy program, which is offering distinctly different services. So we wouldn't count that as a double enrollment. That's a person that's in one program, and then they're in another program. But what we have had, I'm using fatherhood as an example, is clients may shop around, like you're saying. So if you're currently enrolled in a fatherhood program, you go to another fatherhood program, that provider can't enroll that dad yet because he's currently enrolled this year in another program. So sometimes they reach out to DYCD and we have them confer with each other, like, who's serving that dad? Maybe he's not satisfied with program X and he'd be a better fit with program Y. And so we would have program X and his participation, and he's immediately then enrolled in program Y.
So then I can follow up with that. Let's say I am a CBO that wants funding, so I'm going to reach out and say I'm going to take care of everybody, and then I'm not so great, but somebody else who isn't as aggressive at getting their clients or customers, because it's like a business, right? They may say, well, we're not going to go to this center anymore. They don't really do what they said they were going to do, but I'm going to go to the other one, and the other one's not getting the credit. So is that something we should look at?
We DYCD, we do DYCD in the board, like who's we? We're looking at it.
I don't know. I guess I wanted to understand the number. Like, do they get, well, for me, if the one organization is really good at doing what they do, but they don't have the numbers because they're getting clients from other places. Right. I'm
so
not sure if that's...
I have an answer, and then depending on how the response was received, the Deputy Commissioner might want to weigh in. Right. So broadly, and when we think about our efforts for integration, as the Deputy Commissioner has mentioned this over time, not just CSBG, the entire agency is looking ever more at the dynamic that you are talking about. So I'm trying to think of a historic example. So when we had middle school programs, which you don't need to because the city has invested a lot of resources, and that's why Sonic has huge numbers, but it used to be NDA middle school program. So you might have young people shop, and we didn't want to count a young person who was in NDA middle school program who was also in when it was an OST program, OST middle school, because the program services were really similar. So we wanted the programs to decide whose client that was because they were receiving similar services, right? So some of that is a negotiation because we don't want to have duplicative numbers. To your key point, or your larger point about who is providers who are making effort to have full enrollment, and then who's getting credit based on that. We've been in some, I think, very helpful conversations, particularly related, as an example, our literacy programs and our beacon programs. And if I understand the example there well, in the effort to promote integration and in the effort to promote co-locating, we have some literacy programs that, again, it's like we're enriching the environment. And so now that you're at this program, you're also going to be able to tap all these other maybe social programs that aren't specific to literacy, and maybe even invent some stuff that's kind of a hybrid of the two. This is something that we're actively working on in terms of days and hours, and when you're in a specific part of a program or particular activity, who is going to record that into the system. This is something that's unfolding in real time, because as I said, the literacy programs have just moved into the new database, so that problem never appeared before. But the problem is just the minor barrier to get to the new solution, because the desired state is to have programs leverage one another. This is just an administrative issue that we're sorting through. Did I get it right, or is there anything that you wanted to add to?
I mean, I think the other thing that
knows that we're moving to universal participant tracking system. So you remember that when we were talking about the strategic plan, we were revamping all our IT systems so they could, whatever reporting systems, everybody had the same reporting system, so that if somebody is trying to enter enrollment for a participant, and that participant has already been enrolled, it's not gonna allow me to do that. And that's in process right now. And that's the reason why we wanted to do that system, because we realized two things. One, that there may be a participant who's taking advantage of many resources in there, and we don't want them not to do that. We actually encourage them to do that. So now that we have a universal system, our next challenge is how do we allow, how is it not going to discourage a participant from going to something that they want if the provider can't really enroll them?
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm thinking if what Anita said before was inspiring to me, because I'm thinking if we're in new times, we have to create connections. These organizations that at one point, especially if they're getting funding from multiple sources, we have to make sure that we reinvent the rules by saying, we want you to work together. We want collaboration. So the person who's going out and getting all those members right away has to play with the others, and that they have to get somehow that helping each other is the model. If we don't do that among organizations and organizational leaders, even in terms of the politicians, and I'm going like way out there, if we don't get to why we're here to help each other. Therefore, organizations, community-based organizations are not competing anymore. We need to get them by an agency by saying, well, we're going to ask you to work together on this, and we're going to be one. It's no longer, I'm going to get your members and then you can't. I don't know if that really happens. I just think of it on a level of, since I'm a school teacher, and what happened with the charter schools that came into some of the schools that were already operating. They took a lot of the students out at the beginning, got the funding, and then dropped some of them because they couldn't handle and put them in public, back into the other program, but they got the credit, they got the funding. So that's why my question, I didn't have any clue that there was something else going on that you mentioned that you're working on and that you said you're working on. It was more about, my thinking was, I transferred it to community-based organizations.
Sure.
How are they working? Are they working together?
It was a very appropriate and helpful question, and so I'll only think to add, the agency has articulated a framework for strategic partnership, and we've done that because in part of the realities that you're talking about, we want to have coaching conversations and use our role or potential role as a convener. So we know at points in time we release RFPs. We know one of the realities is at points in time CBOs are competing to get a contract. We know that. But then once awards are made, exactly as you rightly state, we want folks to work together and maximally leverage both the various funding they may receive from DYCD as well as other resources are available. So I think, so one, I want to let you know that we're doing that, and that our capacity building unit in advancing that framework also has, I was talking about these different trainings, so some of those, that's what some of those trainings have been about, is having folks come in. We have collaboration clinics as some of those trainings. So it's like, okay, you can make up any case example. Like I have a runaway homeless youth program, and yeah, you're right, some of my young people have a literacy issue, so I would like to hand them off. And I would like someone to hand someone off to me if you find out that they are homeless. So how do we share? And so folks have signed up to participate in those collaboration clinics because they're wanting to play nice and wanting to share and understanding that, the sum is greater than the parts. And probably we can spend more time in another forum to talk more about that.
So thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you again. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that the final?
Yeah.
Comment?
Okay, one quick question. Christian Rodriguez. Considering the situation we have in our communities with housing, and looking at your presentation, I see here it says actual solving housing problems and the actual enrollment of the programs of companies we have given the services. Can you give me just an example of kind of solving problems, housing problems? Because many times you come in contact with people that they really have a problem with housing. I want to know if I can refer these people to some of these agencies, and where is that I can find a listing of these agencies giving the services.
Sure, happy to respond. So one practical example, you could have a landlord that is withheld on making necessary repairs. And so these are housing assistance programs for persons that have housing who are at risk of losing safe, affordable housing. They talk to a community-based organization to help them navigate how do you make sure that those repairs get made. Or there might be a tenant-tenant or tenant-landlord dispute. Everything the agency is funding is available online, but if you have targeted questions, you can reach out to Anita or James if it's about a specific neighborhood, and we field those inquiries all the time to help refer people to programs. Sure. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, and we thank you for those questions. And again, if there's any additional questions or other information that you think would be helpful, just circle back to us and we'll be able to do that. David, Alexander, we can talk about some of the stuff you wanted to see if there's ways we can get you that information that you requested as well, and it might be helpful to the rest of the group.
It would be helpful because it gives you numbers, because once we identify, we can try to upload those programs with the numbers that are needed to fulfill the program and help the people that we're trying to help.
Duly noted, so I made a note of that, so thank you. For the record, I want to just recognize members that came in after we did the roll call, so we'll have it as a matter of record. David Alexander, Susie Tenenbaum, Rhonda Joseph, Claudia Perez. Okay, so that's it. So we wanted to recognize those members that came in after the roll call for the record, that we can acknowledge them. Any old business that we need to go over? Is there any old business? Any new business? Yes, James.
On the way out, please leave the form at my desk.
Thank you, and I had that as part of my closing point, to just make sure that form that was circulated, please fill that out. Again, just put your name on it, the name of the person you think that will be interested, and you will be contacted for further information so that we can have an opportunity to engage these individuals to fill some of these vacancies. I believe the list of vacancies was circulated, so everyone knows where those vacancies exist. Mike Bobbitt is back there. I don't see him. Is he there?
Yeah, he's there.
Mike, does our representative from Department of State like to say anything to the members of the CAB? Yeah. You can come up to the podium if you like, or we can bring you the mic.
No, I just want to thank you for letting me sit in and observe your meeting. I think it's fantastic that you guys are involved and you actually ask questions. Sometimes I go to meetings and you don't hear anything. So it's really wonderful. You're here because you want to be here. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. We appreciate that. So our next meeting is January 24th, so it seems like it's right around the corner, but remember this was a rescheduled meeting. So please put that on the calendar. Please remember the rules for quorum. We know this was a rescheduled meeting, which probably made it slightly more challenging today to achieve quorum with it being so close to the holiday season. So a lot of it was discussed. Today the meeting will be circulated, but will be for information only. Again, no voting on these items, but please, if you just put that date on your calendar so we can make sure we do have quorum for the next meeting, and we can move forward with the business at hand. I don't think there's anything else. I want to wish everyone a happy holiday and a prosperous new year for you and your family. Stay safe. I'm excited about moving forward in 2019 with this new leadership within DYCD and the exciting promotions and everything. I think we're poised to really do some exciting things. I always joke with the Deputy Commissioner, we just, and Mike Bobbitt, that we've done so many great things. How do we top it? Like, I don't want to plateau, but, you know, how do we top it? And I think we're in position to top it with all that is coming about. So I'm looking forward to that. As always, I'm accessible, so if you need to reach out to me, please don't hesitate to do so. And again, congratulations to Anita on her promotion, and to James. I wish you all the best in your role, and we look forward to working with you. With that said, I'll entertain a motion now to adjourn the meeting. Oh, that's right. No motion. Look at that. Meeting's adjourned. My apologies.